Cool. How are things going with you?
Going great, man. Going great. How about yourself?
Doing well, doing really well. So
Nice.
you you got a lot going on since the last time I talked to you. I've seen you got some big projects. You guys grown quite a bit in the last couple of years.
Yeah, immensely, man. I think when we talked last, I think I had just gone back to Schaefer Construction, just kind of started buying in.
Yep.
Um,
You're just becoming an owner of it.
yep, yep. So I'm now the 100% owner. I bought out my partner in full at the end of last year, and we're growing leaps and bounds, man. It's been a good ride.
That's fantastic. What area are you guys specializing in?
We build anything other than single family homes.
Okay.
We do a lot of light industrial. We used to do a lot of office. That's kind of on pause now, still from 2020. But municipal work. We built some community centers, fire stations, police stations. You name it, we build it. We're building a
Okay.
large mixed use right now, so it's all on the table.
Awesome. And you're just there in Michigan, huh?
Yep, Southeast Michigan. We operate about in a 2 hour radius from Brighton, which is 45 minutes north of Detroit.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, we travel out of state if an existing client has a need. We'll go to help them out, but it's just as of right now, we haven't really made a push to get out of state too much.
Yeah, it's sometimes it's better just to stay in your own backyard. There's plenty of
We're busy enough.
busy enough. So what's the biggest thing you've learned probably in the past couple of years of being 100% owner?
There's lots, man. um, the hardest thing I had to deal with was culture and trying to find people before I put my own culture and core values in place. And it sounds cliche, but it's not. It was by far the hardest thing I've ever done. And once I stepped back and put a real focus on core values and started thinking about actually building my culture into the company, the good people just started coming, and
Yeah.
the bad ones weed themselves out. And but those
Yep.
first couple of years trying to take existing people at the company, or just the random guy or woman, and shoehorn them in and make them fit. It was a disaster.
Yeah, I totally get that. So I've been in my role for 2 years now, vice president of purchasing at American Homes for Rent, which we're now called AMH. And I cover five markets, and I have five directors of purchasing, and I have five purchasing agents to work for them. And last year in December, they were all purchasing managers. They all got promoted to director, and I was like, oh man, like not a single one of them is ready to like be a director. Like if they wouldn't have applied for the job of director of purchasing, they would not be qualified. Like they wouldn't get hired. I was like, I gotta train them to be leaders. And so I set up, and I felt so silly when I did it. But at the beginning of last year, I was like, I'm gonna put down a mission statement and some metrics of like if we met our mission or not, like how we know if we did it. And then I put core values. And I remember the first time I was like telling them like what core values were and what I wanted, how I wanted to run the team. I felt so silly. But they all bought in, and they all like stepped up their game a ton over the year. And it made it clear, like when people are facing problems, and you go like, hey, you know, a lot of times you'll make excuses like, this is the only person we got for this role, or this is the only vendor we got that can do this work. And it's like, are, you know, are they part of it? Are they in alignment with us? Like we want to make clear decisions based on being in alignment with these core values, and it makes things very easy to go, you know what, they're not. And let's figure something out or get them on board. And then at the beginning of this year, I said, um, this year it's our team. It's not my team telling you guys what to do. We're going to set our own mission statement. Our team is going to put a mission statement. Our team is going to set the metrics to do if we did a good job or not, and our team is going to set the core values. So we spent a day doing that stuff, and surprisingly, some of the core values they set last year they incorporated. Some they took a little bit step further, and then they came up with their own. So I don't know. It's you're right. It's like one of those things. It matters. It doesn't seem like it would matter. It's like, that can wait. That's not moving the needle. I got paperwork to fill out, estimates to turn out, and safety reports, all that other stuff.
That's exactly it, man. I mean, and I did that. Let me kind of hit pause real quick. I inadvertently hit the record button right away. So if you're fine with it, I'd say we just keep rolling. If Dylan, you're good with that, we can chop this up a little bit in post.
Yeah, that's fine. I don't
but
care.
The conversation was great. So to jump right back in, yeah, I tried for the first 2 years just to run, right? Just put my head down and just run and get work, win work, build work. And that was all we did. And, it worked okay, but I ran into a lot of walls doing that. And it didn't enhance the team in any way whatsoever. And it wasn't until like that third year where it started clicking, like, okay, there's something more. And ironically, that third year was when I joined Arate. So I would, I give a lot of credit to that, but I think it's just a focus on culture and core values. You got to do it. And like you said, Nate, it sounds goofy at first. And to go in front of, especially construction guys, right? We're gruff, mean assholes by nature. To go in front of guys like that and be like, hey, we're going to take a step back and we're going to focus on core values and feelings and the fluffy stuff, that was scary, but it was necessary too. And it worked out really well.
Mm-hmm. Does your team work for you full time, or are they like kind of more like subcontractors that work for other builders at the same time?
So I've got 7 employees now who work for me. Well, 6 of them work full time. One of them is my oldest son, and he grabs hours when he's not in school. But then outside of that, we subcontract. So we don't self-perform any trade work. We handle supervision management. We put the deals together, and then we bring in our trade partners, our specialty contractors to handle the rest of it.
Okay. So I got a comment that I want to ask you a question about. Do you how do you get your trade contractors on board with your core values? And it was the thing that kind of I was thinking about just now is my first job ever I worked at was this large general contractor, and their core value, I mean, they didn't really call it core values in that sense, but looking back on it was safety is the number one priority. And we start every meeting talking about safety. So it didn't matter what meeting it was, you talked about safety. And so we'd start every morning. The shift started at 7 o'clock, and we had a little huddle up. And then on some days they huddled up with their individual foremen and individual teams. But a lot of the guys, they were all union workers. So sometimes they worked for our company, and sometimes, they went and work for somebody else. And a lot of the guys would just be like, I'm not going to fall in line with this core value, this safety BS that, we all have to follow. But then there were people that embraced it. And, we did stuff like, a clean job is a happy job type stuff. And it's like, oh, we don't got time to pick up all the trash, but like all of a sudden, if the job is so clean that if there's like a burrito wrapper blowing, somebody just stops what they're doing, picks it up and throws it in the trash, the level of attention to everything being in place, it just improved. Their safety improved, their production improved, they weren't walking all over each other. Like it just all mattered. And I think people really enjoyed coming to work and were excited to work more than just kind of like doing the same old thing. So, those core values take a while. Nobody wants to hear about fluffiness, but it does make a huge difference. It's so weird to think about, like, just being woo woo and people going on and do it. But how do you guys work with your trade and get them kind of bought into the same core values where maybe they don't have to have that elsewhere?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a struggle, right? Because the way we approach it is we know the leaders of the company, the owners and typically the foreman, and we can make sure that those guys fit into our mold, right? At least most of them. We can't guarantee that they're all going to fit every single one of our core values, but if they fit, the majority, at least that gives me the warm and fuzzy that the rest of their team is going to be close to it. Okay. And so if it comes down from the top, that's how we've been able to do it. And so the core team, we are huge on teamwork. We don't often go out to the market to bid out our trades, right? We do a lot of design build. We're primarily design build. So we will pick our team very early on. And that team can include an earth worker, sometimes our carpenters, our MEPs. It can be almost the entire project stack of specialty contractors will be on board with us from day one. And by doing that, we can control very, very tightly who we bring into our inner circle. And so while I can't guarantee that all of everyone on down the line from the site super to their laborer is going to mesh 100% with Schaefer Construction's core values, we at least know that the leadership level of those companies do. And that seems to help us and seems to kind of keep everything in line.
Yeah, that's important. When I think about that, like we try to impart the same core values to the teams that we're hiring, because we hire everybody. Like we don't self-perform any of the homes either that we build. It's all bought in. But the core values start highlighting the trades that you want to continue to build a business around and incorporate them in your growth versus the ones that's like, hey, maybe it's time we found some backups. Maybe we found someone a little bit better. It kind of even stepped into like, if we set some core values that like one of them was like get things done, and done means done. Done's not like kind of done, like almost done. So like, done means done. And people can go out and do a really good job in the field. But if they can't handle getting their paperwork right, they can't handle their invoices right, they can't handle getting their insurance certs updated, it's like they are not getting things done. Like their whole business needs to operate at a high level. And it's not enough just to be, oh, well, their field does really good. But the rest of the team's got to deal with the office. Like that's not a long-term solution. And those things become so much more apparent. But then you start working with people that want to get on board, want to do with work. And then they go, you know what? Push comes to shove. I've got, I want to do so many millions of dollars worth of work this year. I can devote so much to do with Schaefer's, or I can go fill it up with somebody else. They go, okay, how much can you give me this year? I want to take all the work you can give me and I'll fill my buckets elsewhere versus, using you as the person that's, filling in the buckets for somebody else.
Yeah. And that's a constant problem we have. We get real bent out of shape in the office when, our carpenter or our steel guy tells us they're working for our competition, right? In a perfect world, we would be able to keep those guys busy 100% of the time. In our world, that's not reality. So we have to quote unquote share our A team. But again, as long as we know they're coming back, right? As long as we keep that symbiotic relationship and we treat them well and they treat us well, it just, in our case anyways, it works great. And again, as we continue to grow and we keep ramping up revenue levels and levels of different project complexity, we keep those guys busier and busier. And maybe in a utopian construction world, we'll eventually get to that point where we can say, all right, we're all on the same team now and you don't go anywhere. But that probably doesn't happen.
How do you plan for your growth? I know the market's been, I don't know how much it's affected the space you're in, but residential home construction, interest rates changed overnight. Like it went wild real quick. It's kind of maybe stabilizing a little bit, but it was kind of ups and downs, and what was planned for the future, those plans changed. So I don't know. How do you guys plan your growth and deal with changing circumstances there?
We put on our blinders and just run and hopefully we don't hit a wall. I mean, the commercial world didn't get as upset, obviously as residential. It doesn't rely as heavily on mortgage rates. And I think that's part of the benefit. The nonsense we all went through over the last 3 years and are continue to go through, that's sparking a ton of pent up demand still on the commercial side, industrial in particular. all the chip shortages and all that bullshit, you know, we're not building chip plants by any means, but the chip plants that are being constructed are now have all these ancillary services that they require, and these spin-off developments that come along with that. And so, you know, we're at a level where we're grabbing up some of those, you know, and that's,
Mm-hmm.
you know, knock on wood, but we're not seeing an end to that. And
Yeah.
frankly, if the government keeps meddling in things and kicking back production and kicking back efficiency, there probably will be no end in it, because there's going to be one thing after the next, right? And it's commodity based, right? And Dylan and I talk all the time about this, and he can probably talk even more eloquently about it than I can. But you know, the steel markets are crazy, just like the lumber markets, right? But steel goes up, steel comes down, and when steel comes down, then roofing insulation's up, and when insulation's up, something else is down, and it's just this constant juggling match of, you know, trying to manage expectations while balancing risk. And you know, I'm sure you see the same thing, just different materials.
Yeah, things change. Labor goes up. Labor doesn't really go down, but shortages happen. Sometimes there's a plethora of labor. Sometimes it's kind of crazy, but I think in general, if you're managing your business that um it doesn't require everything to fall into place perfectly to be successful. Like if lumber we speculate lumber drops and steel drops and labor rates drops and material availability becomes perfect, and if by the grace of God the wind blows the right speed and the stars align, like we might eke out a profit on this project. Like that's not gonna work. Like the chances of that, it's construction. Like we don't know what shit's gonna go wrong, but we know shit will go wrong. um so we have to bake in that fluctuation, and you know, for the most part, things, you know, they're challenging, but they work out. I think when people really suffer is they just get a little greedy. Maybe like too many people, unsophisticated builders come in like, hey, I can, you know, do what this company's been doing for 20 years and I can go do it because I spent a summer as an intern in the office, right? I know how to run a business. Like they go in and do it, and because the market is propping them up, they have early successes, and then when the market shifts, like they burn. And you know, in our business, if a general contractor goes out of business and they can't pay their bills, then there's vendors you depend on that might be financially burdened because they're owed some money from somebody else, and if they can't meet their payroll obligations, their guys don't want to show up on your job. It's not your fault, but they don't want to show up, and so it all trickles down. It's a very very complex thing, and early in my career, we used to have this standing joke advice was like fuck up, move up, which was you if you if you had some really bad projects, you learned a lot, and chances are you learned a lot more than if everything went right, and you learned how to cope, you learned how to solve problems, you learned how to um you know, when your budget was shot, like how do you get your project done under budget when you have no budget because you got a bad estimate or you blew some things up. It's like you figure it out, and because you're figuring out those hard lessons, you're able to go to the next job and make it look easy, and because of that, like you end up moving up. So it's like fuck up, move up, and you don't have those bad experiences. Like you don't get that school of hard knocks lessons.
Well, yeah, I mean that's construction 101, right? You get kicked in the nuts over and over and over again, and that's how you learn. It's touching the hot stove theory, right? You do it once and hopefully you don't do it again.
At least not three times.
Yeah, right. Um,
I It's a crazy bit. Sometimes I wonder why people get into it. Feels like there's got to be less painful ways to earn a buck, right?
yeah, yeah. There are, I'm sure of it. But it's an industry I love, right? We all do. We're all in it. Kind of different sides of the table, but
Yeah.
you know, I wouldn't trade it. You know, I could go start a business doing anything. I could make widgets and sell, you know, fidget spinners as an e-com guy and probably make more money and have less stress than I do now. But I would never do it. I love it. I love the building. I love the creating, and the people aspect of it is fantastic.
Did you know, like, early on in your life, like, you're gonna go this route?
Um, no, I mean, I started building houses when I was in my late high school years. It was good money, right? And that was it. I was outside. I was hanging with my buddies. Um, it just kind of morphed and transformed over the years. There's a long story that involves a lot of college debt in there somewhere that is a topic of another episode. But at the end of the day, I kind of out the other side of that tunnel, and here I am. So it's, I've touched almost every side of the industry except for Dylan's. I've never been a design consultant. And I fell in love with it at a very young age. I never planned on it. It's not a family business. My parents aren't in construction by any means. My brothers aren't. None of my family is. So it was just happening, and I kind
Yeah.
of grabbed on, didn't let go.
I think, I don't know. It's like either people have like it runs in their family, like they've got, their parents were in the trades or their parents are in the construction business, or they just fell into it somehow. So like, for example, I didn't go um with the desire to be in construction. Like, I took some high school drafting classes and I thought it was kind of cool, and I wanted to be an architect. And I took took some classes at the university and realized, hey, you got to be kind of artistic to be an architect. This is really going to pan out for me. Um, and transferred into construction management just because it had similar stuff and it sounded interesting. And next thing I know, I'm pouring concrete in the summers, and it's, getting good workout, getting tan, and making a lot of money for a 20-year-old in college. And it just evolved and morphed into it. Next thing you know, you're moving out of the trades and into the office. And here I am 25 years later, and it's like I probably couldn't go do anything else anyways, or want to. I mean,
Yeah. Very, very similar stories, except you actually got a construction degree. So I did
sorry,
not.
I don't remember anything really from it, but maybe I could still draw a cross section of a house from back in construction materials 101 or something.
So I guess let's back up a bit and talk about you and what you're doing now. Why don't you tell us where you're at, what your job is, what your day to day is, and we'll
Yeah,
see where it
so
goes.
I've been, we met a few years ago. I was doing some consulting stuff. We met in Arte, and
Yep.
uh, that didn't really pan out for me the way I'd hoped. The consulting business. So I went back to the home building world, which is what I know. And last couple of years, I went to work for a build to rent builder. So we build single family homes with the intent of renting them. We build it for our own portfolio. Um, and that part kind of intrigued me. But one thing I've learned over the past few years is, like, I've built a lot of homes, built a lot of apartments, and they lost, like, sometimes they feel like the projects like run together. They all just kind of look the same, especially when you're building production homes. It's like, okay, it's another one of the 4 bedroom, 2.5 bath plans. Like, yeah, sweet. We just built, 500 of them. Um, but I took on a role where I had a team in 5 different markets from Colorado to Seattle, and I'd never managed a team remotely before. I'd always had a direct team that worked for me, and it kind of was in the nuts and bolts of the day-to-day stuff because it was one market focused on that. And this was different because I had 5 markets, and I thought I would go into them and kind of do what I've been doing before, and very quickly realized, like, hey, I'm not here every single day in every market and able to have my finger on the pulse the way they do. Um, so I transitioned from me trying to do what I knew what to do, and taught and teach my team um, how to network, how to build relationships with trades, how to build a relationship with construction and purchasing and other aspects of land development, all that stuff. Like, hey, this is like, we're in this together. Like, none of us are physically building these houses, right? Like, we have to go out and get other people to
Yeah.
do it for us. Our performance is judged on getting shit done at the end of the day. Like, did you get it done or not? Like, it's pass or fail. And people that get shit done move up, and people that don't move on. And so it's like, hey, this is what we're going to do. And we have to find people that can help us get shit done because we don't do it ourselves. So we started there. And then we had talked a little bit about the core values and implementing leadership. And I'm a big fan of Jocko Willing's books, especially like Extreme Ownership and
Yeah.
this other one. I can't remember the name. It's like a tactical guide to leadership.
Yep.
But a lot of it stems down to accountability and ownership. Like, what he calls extreme ownership was like, if you take on that everything is your problem, like, it changes it things just dramatically. Of like, oh, Painter didn't show up today. Well, that's your problem. Why is it my problem? He didn't show up. Well, did you clarify the schedule with him? Did you understand what his pain points would be for showing up or not? Like, did you hire the right person? There's like a million things you could have done differently. And we start asking those things, you go, okay, yeah, I could have done a lot of stuff. So the next time you start covering those bases. And really over the past 2 years of training my team and being a mentor to them, it kind of reinvigorated this passion of building people up versus more like building homes. So it's kind of a weird thing I've been kicking around my head, is like builder of homes or builder of people. And it's like, you know what? I'd rather build people up that they can go do their successful jobs, and whether or not they continue to work directly for me or go somewhere else. Like, to me, at the end of my career, if I can look back and go like, hey, I made a huge difference in a lot of people's lives. I gave them the skills and the leadership ability to go take on other roles, maybe within the organization I work for. Maybe they got promoted by going somewhere else to work. Like, if they can go and be a really good, let's just say a really good director for me, that's one thing, because I'm going to be a bit biased because I'm like, hey, they're my person. Like, I made them a director, like, awesome. But if they can
Yeah.
go be the same position and work for somebody else, and somebody else goes, this person's really awesome too. Like, I think that's a testament you did a good job, that they can go work for anybody and somebody's like, rock star. I got a rock star, not somebody that, a little bit of, came up through the ranks. We just know each other really well. So of course we like each other. And so this past year, I was like, you know what? I kind of feel like I need to do more. I feel called to give back a little bit more. So um, aside from doing the purchasing thing and building my team up, which I'm finding a lot of fulfillment in doing, I love my job there. I'm like, you know what? I want to help a few other people. I get asked occasionally, like, hey, what's your advice for getting ahead in your career? And I gave some very just basic usual answers, like learn your boss's job or train your replacement. Like, those are the things I heard. And so I was like, you know what, I'm gonna give a little different piece of advice. What my previous most recent boss said, and his advice was, work 50 hours a week, work 40 in your job, and 10 on your career. And by that I mean, like, you go and you do your 40, you do whatever it takes to get your responsibilities done, whether you're a business owner or you have a 9 to 5 job. And then the other 10 is learning skills to take you to that level you want to get to. And that might be growing your career. Maybe it's becoming a business owner of your own. Maybe it's becoming a really good little league baseball coach, whatever that is. But spend those 10 hours wisely. But I was like, well, what do you do? What would you do tomorrow with your 2 hours tomorrow? Like, what would you do for the week, next week, or 10 hours? Like, what are the specific things you do? And I was like, that is where I think that there's a pitfall, because there's a lot of people that are hungry that reach out to me and like, hey, I've kind of want to step my career up a little bit. They're in that individual contributor role where, if they do their job, they can bang it out and do a really good job. But to go to that next level, they have to learn a new skill set, which is getting other people to do all the things that they've done. And they can't just do what they used to do and do the next thing. They're not going to be successful. It's like, what do I do? How do I get there? And they're nervous about it. It's like, I think there's an opportunity there for me to help people bridge that gap and go, you know what? I do want to get ahead. I want to be able to be successful. I want to lead a team of people. And you've probably had people that you can remember, mentored you, advocated for you in some capacity, maybe officially or unofficially along the way, and you picked up these things. But it took a while until you get older to kind of put two and two together, and you're like, oh, what if somebody gave me a plan? Like, oh, hey, I really want to be in my role. Like, I want to go from a director to vice president. Okay, well, what do you need to do to be there? Well, I don't feel confident in hosting meetings. I don't feel confident in making decisions, or leading others. Okay, well, how do you learn that skills tomorrow? Like, you don't. There's no way. But you go,
Right.
well, you start off somewhere. You got to do something. So communication skills. Like, if you're waiting to host meetings at your organization, you're not going to get enough reps. So you got to go find reps. Where can you get those? You can start a podcast. You can post on social media. You can go join Toastmasters. There's a lot of stuff where you just go, hey, I'm going to get better at talking and communicating and expressing ideas, telling a story. And you do that a few hours every week. At the end of the year, like, you got a lot more reps. You start showing up more confidently every day. People start paying attention and noticing it. And you are further along in that path than you would have, just kind of floundering, going like, hey, maybe one day somebody will promote me. Like, you gotta cut your own deal in life, for the most part. You make things happen.
It absolutely, it is what you make it, right? And I love your tag there, the builder of people versus builder of homes, because that's what it is. And we started doing this in the last year or two, and we make everybody, from our new hires to our seasoned people, fill out a 3-year plan for where they see themselves in 3 years, and we revisit it every 6 months or so, and with the idea that it can change. It should change, frankly, especially the new hires, right? On day one, when we ask someone, I want you to write down on paper a 3-year plan. Where do you see yourself? Where do you want to be in 3 years? And that way me and my leadership team, we can structure a path to get you there. And then we'll meet in 6 months, and maybe, they realize that they hate the operations side of it, but they love the sales and marketing side, or they love the estimate, whatever it may be. That's fine. But you got to continually work to build your people, to build people. And, that's how we fix our companies. That's how we fix this whole damn industry, frankly. And if more people did that, I think we wouldn't have quite the problem we have right now with a lack of people coming into construction as a whole. Because I don't think many people operate the way that we do, and the way you just kind of ran through, and it's that mentality that brings young people in. I
Yeah,
speak a lot in high schools and things around, and that's always a question I get asked. Like, how do you help me grow? How do you, what's the career path from here to here? But what if I change my mind? And shit, man, I change my mind every damn day. So let's sit down and hash it out, put it on paper, and we'll figure out how to get you where you want to go. And there's so many opportunities in this industry to do, from the guy in the ditch digging to the guy in the office putting estimates together, or the person doing social media and marketing, or business development, operating equipment. There's a lot there, but you don't get that interest without having that builder of people mentality. So I applaud you for pushing that.
Well, thank you. I think you're right that people don't pay attention to that, or if they do, it's for more seasoned people that have been around a little bit longer. Like, who gets a development plan the first day? Like, a lot of times, especially in construction, like, your first day could be your last day. Like, sometimes, if you're
Yeah, yeah.
completely messing stuff up, but you spend that time and develop them, show them like, hey, we care about you, that there is a path. You know, construction industry, it's such a weird space because, on one hand, this is a true story. On one hand, you might have somebody that's a division president of a Fortune 500 production home builder doing 1,000 homes a year in a market that has Ivy League degrees, masters, and all this other stuff. And then the person that's his counterpart at the same size builder across the street barely graduated high school and came up the ranks as a welder. Like, you can be both sides of the equation and move up the ranks. You can't do that, doing financial banking. Like you bet you're not going to let you in the door if you don't have your degrees. But I think people think, hey, if I go take a construction job out of high school, it's not glamorous. It's kind of what the last resort you do. Like it's not a future. Like you don't want to be digging ditches. Well, most not everybody stays digging ditches for their whole career. Like they move up, like you might be in the ditch, as a laborer supporting an excavator. But in a few years, maybe you get some hours on the excavator. Now you're an excavator operator. Now you're making good, solid, uh, what are they, middle America paycheck, like really good. And then a few years later, maybe you're an operator foreman and you're running a crew of stuff. And next thing you know, hey, you know what? I could buy a couple of these pieces of machinery myself. I could go start my own little operation. And next thing you know, you're in business as an owner. And some of the richest dudes I've ever met, like you wouldn't even know it by looking at them because they got like that greasy hands and from working on their equipment and just stained clothes, dirty shoes, and look like they're the mechanic. And like, no, that's the guy. He owns about 300 scrapers. The scraper's like a $200,000 piece of machinery, owns it outright. You start counting that up and you go, okay. And then that thing can bring in, they get paid about $3 a yard to move dirt and they can move, 1,000 yards an hour. It's like, holy crap. Like it really adds up fast, like how much money somebody can make. So that's one example, but people move from the field into the office and get a career that way. There's so many people I know that were old framing foremen and now they're superintendents and then they become estimators in the field and or in the office. Like the path to growth isn't clearly defined in the industry. Nobody's really promoting like, hey, there's a potential. And if you talk to some of the advocates in the building industry, specifically, I'm thinking about the Home Builders Association, they talk about that. Like they don't get the kids out of high school that want to go learn a trade because they don't think that there's a future in it and it's not cool. And it's hard work. It really is. But it doesn't have to be. People that work hard, they learn the ropes, they get ahead and they create their opportunities. And construction is one of those things that as long as populations are expanding and there's people want to move somewhere and they want to live somewhere, they need homes, they need roads, they need shopping centers, they need schools. Like it's not going anywhere. It's going to continue to evolve. And we've probably been behind the times a lot in technology, and just in that sector alone, there's probably some really smart kids out there that are going to come up with some idea that none of us have tried or had the courage to try, and they're going to revolutionize the industry. So there's so much potential.
There truly is, and we've done a shit job as an industry to date in promoting it. And Dylan and I talk all the time about the idea of the blue collar badass and making the trades cool again and showing people that what you just said, there is no defined path. There's not a highway from the guy in the ditch to the guy that owns the company. It's because it's like an octopus, right? There's a million different ways you can go. And it takes that constant development, that constant push of where do you want to go? And having and getting to know your people, knowing what motivates them and where they see themselves. And, you mentioned getting a day one employee and giving them having them chart out their course. And we do that. And we actually just hired a woman. She's real sharp. She's going to do very well in our company, in the industry. And it was day one or day two. And we said, we need you to fill out your 3-year plan. And she kind of looked at us like we were effing crazy. Right. She's like, the hell do you want me to even say? I don't know. But it's the exercise of that through that planning, through that conversation that comes out of it, you can show people, listen, it is an industry with unlimited possibility. We just need a place to start. We need a place to start so then we can show you which one of these million different roads you can, start your wander down and we'll get you to somewhere pretty cool at the end of the day.
So How do you get somebody that's brand new thinking about that? You know, your first day on the job, you're just thinking, you know, where's my desk going to be, or you know, where's the restrooms at, and here you're going like, hey, you need to start thinking about your 3-year plan here, and you're like, I don't even know what my 3-day plan is here. Like, I don't even know the tasks you're going to have me do, and what my password is to the computer, and you want me thinking about 3 years from now. Like, how do you get them thinking, uh, oh, I don't know where I want to go, but you want me to write it down? Like, how do I start? Like, how do you get
It
them past that, like maybe first roadblock?
it goes back to what we were talking about earlier. It's communication, right? And I'll be the first one to share my whole story if anyone wants to hear it, right? And that's, you touched on it, as construction always was a plan B. It was, trade school was for the burnouts. The guys in the ditch or the guys in the construction site were the guys your parents warned you about. Well, I'm the motherfucker your parents warned me about. And I started in the field and I built my way up, and now I own the company, and I can show you or anybody how to take a similar path. And that's, to me, that's all it takes, right? I mean, people need to know that you're not pigeonholed in this industry on day one. If you start as a laborer, you're going to labor and you're going to bust your ass. But unless you want to stay there, and if you do want to stay there, fine, right? We're not here to tell everybody that you got to move up and own a company. There's a need for every level. But if you don't want to stay there, then let's communicate. Let's talk about, what motivates you and where you want to get to. And that's how we do it, and my story is a mess, right? I mean, it's a lot of luck. It's a lot of, broken knuckles and shit stories along the way, but that's how we do it. And, we don't expect day one, day two employees to come back with some, superbly well thought and an amazing plan of where they want to get to in 3 years. But the idea is this is an exercise to immediately start the process, immediately start you thinking about what the possibilities are. And it immerses them into our company, right? They are then kind of forced to see, like, all right, I'm starting today as a project engineer, for example, but the blinders are now off. I've kind of seen all sides of this business, and maybe I want to be an owner. Maybe I want to be the vice president. Maybe I want to be a superintendent. And that's how we do it. It immediately opens the picture to them of what the possibilities could be. And again, it doesn't matter what they come back with on day one or day two, right? That's going to change. And if it doesn't change, probably aren't going to work out because they don't have high enough ambition. But it's just a matter of open communication and forcing that. It's a real quick way to break the ice too, right? Like, hey, nice to meet you. Here's your desk. Here's your password. Where do you want to be in 3 years?
It's funny you talk about, like, it really doesn't matter what they put in. It's just to start them thinking about it. And a lot of people in this industry, in lots of industries, they don't know what they want to do. And even when they're established, they don't know what they want to do next. So they don't do anything. They don't wait. They don't plan because, oh, I don't know what I want to do. So how do I create a plan that's perfect to get me there? Because I don't even know where I want to go. So, like, you don't. You just need to put something on paper, because if you see that there's possibilities, you're gonna go. And I'm gonna venture a guess that you've never ever had a plan go exactly as you expected it to go. Like, right, the outcomes are always different. So if you know that the outcomes are going to be different, what's stopping you from starting? Because you're not going to get it right anyways.
It's the one day, or is it day one? And you got to pick. And if it's always one day, you won't fit in our organization, and you're not going to probably make it real far. But if it's day one, if you have that mentality, that's it, right? I've never had a plan in my entire life that fell on without a hitch, right? It's not reality. But you still try. I still don't know what the hell I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
I wake up every morning and I'm like, well, what are we doing today? What's next? And it's that natural curiosity. We're all born with it, right? As children, you have unbridled curiosity. Why do we have to suffer through our adult years without that? Right? I mean, you could still do I could do whatever the hell I want. You could do whatever you want. And it's not we got to get away from that. You're saddled with a position for eternity, and that's it. Right. If
Mm-hmm.
people come into our organization and it turns out they don't like it, period, maybe they don't like construction. Maybe they decide that they want to go be a banker, or they want to work for a title company or something. I'd be more than happy to help them get there. Right.
Mm-hmm.
As long as they still have those values, right? That's what leads that game. And then, we'll help you get wherever you want to go, whether it's with us or without us.
I think that goes a long ways. And a lot of businesses don't see the value in, like, hey, not everybody is on the same path as you, as me, as leaders in other companies. But if you care about your people and you want to help them find out what they're going to be really good at, like, okay, like some people, they just want to come in and do their 40 because they have a nice, safe job and they know how to do it well. And they're finding fulfillment in maybe extra stuff in their community. Maybe they're helping out in the Little League. It's like, okay, well, how can I help you do your job better so that you can devote more of your time and energy to the things that are important to you? Like, isn't that going to make them a better employee for you? Or if they know, like, hey, like, I'm going to help you, like, you're in construction but you want to get your real estate license and go sell real estate, like, I'm going to support that because you never know. They might be, selling commercial real estate in the future and have clients who go like, hey, Matt's got a really good business. I used to work there. He's my old mentor. Like, boom, like it's going to lead to business. Like, you just never know where those opportunities are going to come from. And if you treat people and you care about people and you help them solve their own problems, like that's where your reward's going to come from.
You're spot on, man. And, I wasn't entirely sure what direction we were going to take this episode today, but I'm glad we took it the way we did, Nate. It's we're coming up on time, but it's a good conversation, and it's one that needs to get out there more. Dylan and I talk about it a lot, but more people need to be having these conversations because that's what saves the industry. That's what saves us, as humans, right? It's just human nature that we all want to succeed. We all want to do well. There is no right way to get there. There's a lot of wrong ways. And that could be a whole nother episode. I can tell you lots of wrong ways that I've taken, but it's a matter of helping people. And I love what you said, builder of people. That's going to be the title for this episode. So Nate, I appreciate you. I appreciate you coming on, man. It was great to reconnect. Where can people find you if they want to?
Probably best place to go grab me is on LinkedIn. You can find there. I don't know. Do you guys do some show notes? You want me to send you some links or anything like that? But if not, just search Nate Peo on LinkedIn. You'll find me. Send me a message. Tell me you heard me on Construction Corner podcast.
Sounds good, man. We will do. And let's not make this a 4-year engagement. Let's keep in touch.
Absolutely.
Right on, man. Well, again, I appreciate you coming on. And guys, that's going to be this episode of the Construction Corner podcast. Share the damn show, and we will see you next week.